The war room of the Zolthran flagship hummed with confident voices. Commander Vexthor stood before a massive holographic display showing the Sol system, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. Around him, military advisors from 7 different alien species debated the upcoming invasion with casual arrogance. 200 warships for this? Asked one of the insectoid officers, his mandibles clicking in amusement. The humans barely have 50 vessels. This is excessive. Vexthor's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied the glowing map. The Concordat does not take chances. We will overwhelm them quickly and add Earth to our empire. 3,000 years of conquest have taught us that swift, decisive action prevents prolonged conflict. The intelligence reports painted humanity as a primitive species. They had only left their planet 300 years ago. Their weapons were basic. Their ships were slow. The Zolthran Concordat had been traveling between stars when humans still fought with metal swords on their single world. What do we know of their defensive capabilities? Vexthor asked his tactical officer. Minimal, Commander. Plasma cannons, chemical rockets, basic energy shields. They have some orbital platforms around their homeworld, but nothing that could withstand our bombardment. Their largest ship is less than half a kilometer long. Laughter rippled through the command center. Half a kilometer. The Zolthran dreadnoughts measured 2 kilometers each, and they had 5 of them in this fleet alone. They will surrender the moment they see our fleet, another officer declared. Humans are emotional creatures. Fear will break them. Vexthor was not so certain, but he kept his doubts private. Intelligence suggested humans were fractious and divided, constantly fighting among themselves. Yet something in their history gave him pause. These creatures had endured countless wars on their single planet before reaching space. What did that mean for their nature? Send the advanced scouts, Vexthor ordered. We enter the Sol system in 3 days. Prepare the standard surrender broadcast. Across the void of space in Earth's orbital command station, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the same holographic display with very different eyes. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back tightly, and her weathered face showed no emotion as she studied the approaching alien fleet. They're not even trying to hide their approach, her tactical officer observed. Straight line, maximum sustainable speed. No formation changes, no deception. Why would they? Chen replied quietly. They think they've already won. The command center fell silent. Everyone present knew the odds. 200 alien warships against Earth's 50 defenders. The enemy had better weapons, stronger shields, and 3 millennia of experience conquering other worlds. Orders, Admiral? Her second-in-command asked. Chen's lips curved into a thin smile. Pull all ships back to Mars orbit. Make it look like we're retreating. Let them think we're scared. But Admiral, that will leave the outer colonies completely exposed. Exactly. They need to believe we're weak and frightened. They need to feel absolutely certain of their victory. Chen turned to face her officers. Has anyone in this room studied Zolthran military doctrine? Several hands rose. Chen nodded. Then you know they fight with overwhelming force against lesser opponents. They rely on shield attrition and plasma bombardment. They've fought the same way for thousands of years because it always works. What are we going to do differently? A young officer asked. Everything, Chen said simply. She pulled up a new display showing various historical battles from Earth's bloody past. We're going to show them what 300 years of space travel really means when you come from a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare on a single planet. Deep in Earth's orbital shipyards, beyond the sight of the approaching enemy scouts, something massive stirred in the shadows. The construction bay was the size of a small city, and it had been closed to all but essential personnel for 2 years. Workers in pressure suits moved across the hull of something enormous. Weapon systems powered up for the first time, their energy signatures carefully masked by the station's reactors. Armor plating, meters thick in places, covered a frame built to withstand punishment no alien ship had ever encountered. The THS Indomitable hung in its cradle like a sleeping giant. At 3 kilometers long, it dwarfed every other human vessel ever constructed, but size was not its greatest advantage. This ship represented everything humanity had learned about war across countless centuries, adapted for the stars. No energy shields protected it. Instead, layers of composite armor and Whipple shields could absorb hits that would vaporize lesser vessels. No plasma cannons adorned its hull. Instead, railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to 5% of light speed waited to unleash kinetic hell. The ship's computer systems were protected by quantum encryption, that would take alien hackers centuries to crack. Admiral Chen had fought to keep the indomitable secret until the perfect moment. Politicians had called it a waste of resources. Peace advocates said it made humanity look aggressive. But Chen knew something they did not. She had studied every species in the Concordat. She knew how they thought, how they fought, how they conquered, and she knew they would never expect what was coming. Admiral, the Zalthran fleet has crossed into the outer system, her tactical officer reported. They're broadcasting their surrender demands now. Chen listened to the translation. The usual threats. Submit or be destroyed. Join the Concordat or watch your world burn. The arrogance in Vexthor's voice was unmistakable. Send our response, Chen ordered. Tell them we need time to consider. Ask for 72 hours to consult our government. They'll think we're stalling out of fear. Good. Let them think exactly that. As the Zalthran fleet advanced deeper into the Sol system, confident and unhurried, Admiral Chen sent a single encrypted message to the shipyard command. Wake her up. It's time. In the construction bay, clamps released with explosive force. Warning lights flashed as the massive ship powered its engines for the first time. The Indomitable began to move, sliding out of its berth and into the darkness of space. The hunt was about to begin. The Zalthran fleet entered the Sol system like conquerors at a parade. Their ships flew in perfect formation, weapons charged but not yet firing. Commander Vexthor stood on his bridge watching Earth's sun grow brighter on the main screen. Send the final demand, he ordered. Humanity has had enough time to make the only sensible choice. The message broadcast across all frequencies. Surrender unconditionally. Accept Concordat rule. Any resistance would be met with total destruction. Vexthor had delivered this speech to 17 species before. Most surrendered. Those who did not were crushed. The human response came quickly. We refuse. Leave our system immediately. Shocked silence filled the Zalthran bridge. Then laughter. The tactical officer could barely speak through his amusement. They refuse? Commander, shall we show them what happens to those who refuse the Concordat? Begin the assault. Target their military vessels first. Make it quick. The Zalthran warship surged forward, their plasma cannons glowing with deadly energy. But as they approached Jupiter's orbit, the human ships scattered like frightened prey. Small cruisers and destroyers broke formation, fleeing toward the outer moons. Classic panic response, Vexthor observed. Their fleet is breaking apart. This will be over within hours. The human ships engaged in hit-and-run attacks, firing from behind Jupiter's moons before retreating. Their weapons scratched the Zalthran shields but caused no real damage. It was exactly what Vexthor expected from an inferior force. For 3 days, the humans harassed the advancing fleet. They destroyed 2 small patrol craft with lucky shots. They disabled a frigate with a missile ambush near Europa, but mostly they ran, always retreating, always fleeing deeper into their system. They are leading us toward their homeworld, the tactical officer noted. Perhaps they hope to use their orbital platforms as a final defense. Then we will destroy those platforms and bombard their cities from orbit, Vexthor replied. Advance to Mars. Once we control the inner system, Earth will have no choice. The fleet accelerated past the asteroid belt. The human ships scattered in all directions, their formation completely broken. Some fled toward the outer system. Others retreated to Earth. It looked like complete chaos, exactly the behavior of a defeated enemy. Then the sensors screamed a warning. Commander, massive energy signature detected. Bearing 270, range 3 million kilometers and closing fast. Vexthor stared at the display. A single contact, but the energy output was staggering, larger than any ship in his fleet. What is that? A space station? A weapons platform? Negative, Commander. It's moving. Acceleration rate suggests a warship, but the size, it's enormous. On the main screen, something emerged from the darkness between Earth and Mars. The Indomitable came into view, and the Zalthran bridge fell absolutely silent. The ship was a monster. 3 kilometers of angular armor plating and weapon emplacements. No curves or elegant designs like Zalthran vessels. Just brutal functional engineering built for one purpose. That cannot be a human ship, someone whispered. Their largest vessel is 0.5 kilometer. We were wrong, Vexthor said, his voice suddenly very quiet. We were wrong about everything. The Indomitable's railguns spoke first. There was no warning, no charging energy signature that Zalthran sensors could detect. just tungsten projectiles accelerating to 15,000 kilometers per second, moving so fast they were almost invisible. 3 Zolthran cruisers exploded simultaneously. Their shields did nothing. The kinetic rounds passed through the energy barriers as if they did not exist, punching holes completely through the ships from bow to stern. Secondary explosions tore the vessels apart. Panic erupted across the fleet communication channels. What hit us? What weapons are those? Kinetic projectiles, the tactical officer stammered. Solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Our shields are designed for energy weapons. They cannot stop physical objects moving that fast. Vexithor felt ice form in his chest. All ships concentrate fire on that battleship. Destroy it now. 24 Zolthran warships opened fire. Plasma bolts bright as small suns streaked toward the Indomitable. Enough firepower to vaporize a city, all focused on one target. The human battleship did not dodge. It did not activate shields. Instead, hundreds of point defense lasers activated across its hull. The beams tracked incoming plasma bolts with impossible precision, ablating the superheated matter and deflecting the shots away from critical areas. Some plasma struck the armor, but the Indomitable's hull barely showed damage. It has no shields, the sensor officer shouted. It is using armor and point defense to deflect our weapons. That is impossible, Vexthor said. But he was watching it happen. The human ship fought in a way no one in the Concordat had ever seen. It did not rely on shield strength and energy attrition. It used armor, electronic warfare, and weapons that moved too fast to track. The Indomitable fired again. Railgun rounds tore through 2 more ships. Then it launched missiles, but these were unlike any missiles the Zolthrans recognized. Nuclear-pumped laser warheads that detonated near Zolthran vessels, their X-ray output burning through shields and hulls. Evasive maneuvers, Vexthor ordered. All ships scatter. But the human ship had already anticipated the order. Its targeting computer, enhanced by advanced AI, tracked every vessel in the Zolthran fleet. More railgun rounds found their targets. More ships died in silent explosions. The Zolthran formation, so perfect and confident hours before, dissolved into chaos. Ships collided as they tried to evade. Communication channels were overwhelmed with panicked reports and requests for orders. And through it all, the Indomitable advanced steadily, its weapons firing with mechanical precision. The ship's hull was scarred now, showing damage from plasma impacts, but it fought on. A transmission came from the human battleship. Admiral Chen's voice was calm and cold. You came to our home uninvited. You threatened our world. You believed we would be easy prey because you did not understand us. Another salvo of railgun fire destroyed a Zolthran dreadnought. The massive ship broke in half, its reactor detonating in a flash of light. We have studied you for decades, Chen continued. We know your tactics, your weapons, your strategies. You knew nothing about us except what we chose to show you. Vexthor stared at the screen, watching his fleet die. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost 40 ships. The humans had lost 3 destroyers, 3. The equation was impossible, but the evidence burned in space around him. Commander, we must retreat, his tactical officer pleaded. We cannot win this battle. No, Vexthor whispered. He could not accept it. The Concordat had never lost. Never. Regroup at Mars. We will coordinate a full assault. We still outnumber them. But as he gave the order, Vexthor finally understood the terrible truth. The Zolthran Concordat had spent 3,000 years fighting species that fought like them. They had never encountered an enemy that did not play by the same rules. Humans had spent 10,000 years fighting each other on one world. They had refined warfare through countless wars, learning lessons the Concordat had never needed to face. And now, in the vastness of space, those lessons were proving devastatingly effective. The Indomitable sent one final transmission before the Zolthran fleet limped away to regroup. This is your only warning. Leave our system now, or we will show you what humans do to invaders. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vexthor felt genuine fear. Commander Vexthor tried to make sense of the disaster. His fleet regrouped near Mars, licking wounds that should not have existed. The other Concordat leaders demanded answers through encrypted channels. How could humans, primitive humans, destroy 40 warships in one engagement? We underestimated their military development, Vexthor admitted in the strategy meeting. His pride tasted like poison, but the truth had to be spoken. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. On the display, analysts broke down the battle recordings. The Zolthran commanders watched in Silence as the Indomitable demonstrated tactics that made no sense according to their 3,000-year military doctrine. They do not use shields, the tactical officer explained. Instead, they layer their defense. Armor plating meters thick, Whipple shields to fragment incoming projectiles, point defense systems that track and destroy threats. It is a completely different defensive philosophy. And their weapons? Another commander asked. Kinetic kill vehicles, railguns that accelerate solid projectiles to extreme velocities. Our shields stop energy, not matter, moving at those speeds. They also use nuclear devices in ways we have never seen. Laser-pumped warheads, electromagnetic pulse weapons, and something their databases call cyber warfare. That last term confused everyone. The translator struggled with the concept. Warfare through computer systems? How did one fight with information? They learned quickly. The Indomitable began broadcasting on all concordant frequencies. Not threats, not demands. Something far more dangerous, truth. Human transmissions played recordings of Zalthran conquests. Worlds burned, populations enslaved, species that resisted were shown no mercy. The recordings were authentic, pulled from concordant military archives by human hackers who had penetrated their computer systems. The 7 species that made up the concordant fleet began to question their alliance. The insectoid Kresh had joined the Concordat only 50 years ago, forced into service after their homeworld fell. Now they learned what had happened to species that continued to resist. This is information warfare, Vexthor realized. They are trying to break our unity. It was working. 2 species, the Kresh and the amphibian Vorn, received secret transmissions from Earth. Admiral Chen offered them a choice. Stand down, refuse to fight, and humanity would remember their mercy. Continue the invasion and face the consequences. The Concordat Council fractured. Arguments erupted over command channels. Some species wanted to continue. Others questioned why they were fighting at all. The Zalthrans had promised them wealth and territory from Earth's conquest. Now that victory seemed uncertain, old resentment surfaced. Vexthor tried to restore order, but the humans had studied the Concordat thoroughly. They knew each species used different communication protocols. They exploited those differences, jamming some frequencies while leaving others open, ensuring confusion spread through the fleet. Then the Indomitable attacked again, but not with weapons. Advanced viruses infected Zalthran targeting computers. Ships started seeing false sensor readings. 2 cruisers fired on each other, each convinced the other was a human vessel. The friendly fire incident killed 300 crew members before the mistake was discovered. How are they doing this? Vexthor demanded. Our computer systems are secured. Not against human intrusion, the technical officer admitted. Admiral, their computer technology is generations ahead of ours. While we focused on plasma weapons and shield strength, humans developed artificial intelligence and quantum encryption. Our systems were never designed to resist this kind of attack. Admiral Chen watched the Zalthran fleet's disintegration from the Indomitable's command center. Her officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, launching electronic attacks, intercepting enemy communications, and coordinating with the scattered human fleet. The Kresh and Vorn have agreed to stand down, her communication officer reported. They are moving their ships to the outer system and requesting asylum. Granted, Chen ordered. Broadcast their decision to the entire Concordat fleet. Let the others know they have a choice. This was warfare as Earth had perfected it over millennia. Not just destroying the enemy's ships, but breaking their will to fight. Turning allies against each other. Exploiting fear, doubt, and self-interest. The major battle came 3 days later near Mars. Vexthor gathered his remaining loyalists, 120 ships, and launched a coordinated assault on the Indomitable. This time they adapted, focusing kinetic kill weapons of their own, crude railguns hastily installed on their flagships. The battle was brutal. The Indomitable used Mars itself as a weapon, diving into the planet's gravity well and magnetic field. The human ship performed maneuvers that should have torn any vessel apart. It spun, rolled, and accelerated in ways that violated every safety protocol the Zalthrans knew. Their inertial dampeners must be incredibly advanced, the tactical officer gasped, watching the human battleship perform a 90-degree turn at full thrust. What Vexthor did not know was that human engineering had solved problems the Concordat never faced. Earth's harsh gravity and deadly environment had forced humans to develop technology for surviving extreme conditions. Those same systems now gave their warships capabilities that seemed impossible. The Indomitable used Mars's magnetic field to deflect plasma bolts. It used the planet's mass to slingshot itself at velocities no Zalthran ship could match. When enemy fighters launched, human point defense systems created a kill zone that nothing could penetrate. The fighters died by the dozens, shot down before they could get close enough to deploy weapons. Vexthor threw everything at the human battleship. Missiles, plasma, kinetic rounds, even experimental weapons the Concordat had been saving for desperate situations. The Indomitable took damage. Armor plating melted. Systems failed. Fires erupted on multiple decks, but the human ship did not break. Its crew fought with a determination that terrified the Zalthrans. Damage control teams worked miracles, restoring systems minutes after they failed. The ship's AI rerouted power, compensated for battle damage, and kept weapons firing even as sections of the hull breached to vacuum. When the battle ended 6 hours later, the Zalthran fleet had lost another 40 ships. The Indomitable was heavily damaged but still fighting, still dangerous. It limped back toward Earth orbit, trailing debris and venting atmosphere, but its weapons remained active. Vexthor sat in his command chair, staring at the casualty reports. 80 ships lost in total, more than a third of his invasion force, destroyed by a single enemy vessel and a handful of supporting craft. They knew, he said quietly. They knew everything about us. How we fight. How we think. Our doctrine, our tactics, our strategies. They studied us for decades while we learned nothing about them. His tactical officer approached carefully. "Commander, what are your orders?" Vexthor wanted to continue. Pride demanded it. The Concordat's reputation required it. But reality was undeniable. The humans had prepared for this war long before the Zalthrans even knew Earth existed. Every tactic, every weapon, every strategy was designed specifically to counter the Concordat's military doctrine. "Send a message to Concordat High Command," Vexthor ordered, his voice bitter. "Request reinforcements. 300 additional ships." The officer paled. "Commander, that will take weeks to arrive." "I know. But we cannot win with what we have. The humans—" Vexthor paused, forcing himself to say the words. "The humans are not primitive. They are not weak. They are the most dangerous enemy the Concordat has ever faced." In Earth orbit, Admiral Chen received reports of the Zalthran message. "Reinforcements coming. 300 more ships." The odds were about to get much worse. "Ma'am, we need to repair the Indomitable," her executive officer said. She took heavy damage. Chen nodded slowly, her mind already working on the next phase. The Zalthrans had learned some lessons, but not enough. They still did not understand what they faced. They did not understand that humanity had turned warfare into an art form through 10,000 years of practice. They did not know that every human ship, every weapon, every tactic came from lessons written in blood across countless battles on one small planet. The Zalthrans thought they knew war. They were about to learn what war really meant. The Emergency Council met in the deepest levels of the Zalthran command ship. Representatives from all 7 Concordat species joined the secure channel, their holographic forms flickering in the dim light. Commander Vexthor stood before them, prepared to face their judgment. "You have lost 80 ships," the High Chancellor stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "Against a single enemy vessel." Explain this failure. Vexthor provided the battle data without excuses. The recordings spoke for themselves. The Indomitable, the human tactics, the psychological warfare, the cyber attacks. When he finished, the council sat in stunned silence. "The humans have been preparing for this war for decades," Vexthor concluded. "They knew we would come eventually. They studied us, learned our weaknesses, and built weapons specifically designed to counter our doctrine. Then we will send overwhelming force," another counselor declared. 300 ships will crush them. They have only one battleship." "No," said a quieter voice. Admiral Kresh, leader of the insectoid species that had stood down. "You do not understand. I have spoken with the human Admiral Chen. These creatures have been fighting wars on their planet for their entire history. They know things about combat we have never imagined because we never needed to learn them." The council turned their attention to Kresh. "You are a traitor," the High Chancellor said coldly. "You abandoned your Concordat oath." "I made a choice to preserve my people," Kresh replied. "The humans offered us mercy if we stood down. We took it. I suggest you do the same." The transmission ended abruptly. The High Chancellor turned back to Vexthor. You have 3 weeks until reinforcements arrive. Make them count. And Commander, failure is not acceptable. Vexthor knew what that meant. Win or die trying. The Concordat did not tolerate commanders who lost wars. He had one chance to redeem himself before the reinforcements arrived and replaced him. That night Vexthor made his decision. If he could not conquer Earth, he would destroy it. The Concordat would send a message to the entire galaxy. Resist us and your world burns. Prepare the antimatter warheads, he ordered his most trusted officers. 20 heavy cruisers will make a direct run at Earth. Maximum speed, no stops. Even if the humans destroy 19 ships, one will get through. One antimatter warhead detonating in Earth's atmosphere will render the planet uninhabitable. His officers hesitated. Commander, this violates the Concordat Charter. We do not practice genocide. The Concordat Charter is written by winners, Vexthor replied. If we lose this war, there will be no Concordat. The humans will destroy everything we have built over 3,000 years. I will not allow that. The plan was set in motion. 20 cruisers loaded with antimatter weapons, crews hand-picked for loyalty. They would launch in 3 days, giving them maximum surprise. But human intelligence was better than Vexthor realized. Earth's deep space monitoring network intercepted coded Zolthran transmissions. Advanced AI systems decoded the messages within hours. The computers flagged the word patterns and energy signatures that suggested antimatter weapons preparation. Admiral Chen read the intelligence report 3 times, her face growing paler with each reading. They are planning a suicide run. 20 ships carrying planet-killer weapons. Can we stop them? Her executive officer asked. The Indomitable could, but she is the only ship with enough firepower to guarantee interception. Chen pulled up the tactical display, which means we would have to leave Mars and the outer colonies completely undefended. The main Zolthran fleet would have free reign. The choice was impossible. Protect Earth and lose the colonies, or defend the colonies and risk Earth's destruction. Chen stared at the display for a long moment, her mind working through scenarios. Send orders to all ships in the outer system, she finally said. They are to engage the main Zolthran fleet and keep them occupied. Hit and run tactics, no direct engagement. Just keep them distracted. And the Indomitable? We go after the Suicide Squad. Chen's voice was firm despite the weight of her decision. Earth cannot fall. Without our homeworld, humanity has nothing to fight for. The Indomitable departed Earth orbit within 12 hours, its crew working around the clock to complete emergency repairs. The ship was not fully operational, but it was functional enough to fight. It would have to be. The Suicide Squad launched 2 days later, their intentions hidden until they broke formation and burned at maximum speed toward Earth. 20 heavy cruisers, each loaded with enough antimatter to crack a continent, racing toward humanity's homeworld. The chase was desperate. The Indomitable pushed its engines beyond safe limits, reactors running at 140% capacity. Alarms blared constantly as systems overheated, but the crew ignored them. They had one job: stop those ships. One by one, the Indomitable's railguns found their targets. At extreme range, the shots were less accurate, but the human ship had better targeting computers. The first cruiser exploded when a tungsten round pierced its antimatter containment. The second died to a nuclear-pumped laser. The third, fourth, and fifth fell to concentrated fire, but the leading ships were getting too close to Earth. The planet's defense satellites engaged, their weapons adding to the barrage. Human fighter squadrons launched from lunar bases, throwing themselves at the enemy in desperate kamikaze runs. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with growing horror. They were destroying the cruisers, but not fast enough. 3 enemy ships would reach Earth's atmosphere before interception was possible. All weapons target the lead ships, she ordered. Reactor power to 150%. I don't care if it burns out the core. The Indomitable shuddered as it fired everything. Railguns, missiles, lasers, every weapon system active simultaneously. The ship's frame groaned under the stress. 2 more cruisers died. 1 enemy ship remained, diving toward Earth at suicidal speed. Its captain had locked the controls and evacuated to escape pods, leaving the vessel to complete its deadly mission on autopilot. Chen made her decision in a fraction of a second. Helm, intercept course. Ram that ship, Admiral, that will cripple us. Do it. The Indomitable changed course, its damaged engines straining. The crew grabbed hold of anything solid as the ship accelerated into a collision course. The enemy cruiser grew larger on the screens, its antimatter weapons glowing with deadly potential. The impact was catastrophic. 3 kilometers of human warship collided with 2 kilometers of Zalthran cruiser, at combined speeds exceeding 1,000 kilometers per second. The sound was felt more than heard, a vibration that shook every bolt and rivet. The Zalthran ship broke apart, its antimatter containment failing. But instead of detonating near Earth, the explosion occurred in deep space, a brief new sun that flared and died harmlessly. The Indomitable tumbled through space, trailing debris and atmosphere. Entire sections were crushed. The bridge lost gravity and power. Emergency lights flickered on, revealing smoke and floating debris. Admiral Chen pulled herself upright, blood flowing from a cut on her forehead. Around her, crew members checked themselves and their stations. Incredibly, most had survived. "Damage report," she ordered, her voice hoarse. The reports came in slowly. Engines offline, weapon systems destroyed or damaged, life support compromised in multiple sections. The Indomitable was dying, but it had completed its mission. Earth was safe. "Ma'am, we are receiving a transmission from Mars," the communication officer reported. "The human fleet engaged the main Zalthran force. They are holding them off, but barely." Chen closed her eyes, allowing herself one moment of relief. Then she opened them again, focusing on what came next. "Get emergency repair teams working. We need engines back online. This battle is not over yet." In the Zalthran fleet, Vexthor received news of the Suicide Squad's failure, all 20 ships destroyed, Earth intact, and now the human battleship that had caused so much destruction was crippled, vulnerable. But instead of triumph, Vexthor felt only cold certainty. The humans had sacrificed their most powerful ship to save their homeworld. They had shown they would pay any price, accept any loss, to protect what was theirs. These were not creatures who would surrender. These were warriors who would fight to the last breath, using every weapon and tactic at their disposal. The reinforcements would arrive in 2 weeks. Vexthor wondered if it would be enough. He was beginning to doubt if any number of ships would be enough to conquer humanity. The humans had proven something terrifying. They did not just know how to fight. They knew how to win. The reinforcement fleet arrived 2 weeks later to find chaos. Commander Vexthor's remaining ships, now reduced to 80 vessels, were scattered across the Sol system. Some guarded the outer planets. Others maintained a blockade position near Mars. But there was no organization, no coordinated strategy. The fleet looked defeated even before the new arrivals entered the battle. Admiral Kresh, commanding the reinforcement fleet, studied the tactical situation with experienced eyes. She was not like Vexthor. She had risen through the Concordat ranks by winning battles through intelligence, not brute force. The battlefield data told her everything she needed to know. "The humans have fought us to a standstill," she said to her senior officers. Vexthor began with 200 ships. He now has 80. The humans started with 50 combat vessels and 1 battleship. They retain 43 vessels and their battleship is damaged but repairing in Earth orbit. "Then we have overwhelming advantage," one officer suggested. 300 fresh ships against their weakened forces. Kresh pulled up recordings of the previous battles. She watched the Indomitable destroy Zalthran vessels with clinical efficiency. She studied the human tactics, the psychological warfare, the cyber attacks. She saw how humans turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. "We do not have the advantage," Kresh said quietly. "We have numbers, but they have knowledge. They understand warfare in ways we have never needed to learn. Every engagement proves it." She opened a communication channel directly to Earth. It took 30 minutes to establish the connection, and another hour of negotiation before Admiral Chen agreed to speak. The two commanders faced each other across the vast distance of space, their images transmitted through quantum relays. Kresh saw a tired human woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Chen saw an insectoid alien with multifaceted eyes and mandibles that clicked softly. "Admiral Chen," Kresh began. "I am Admiral Kresh of the Concordat Reinforcement Fleet. I have been given authority to negotiate terms. Your commander Vexthor tried to genocide my planet," Chen replied coldly. "Why would I negotiate with you?" "Because Vexthor is an example of what happens when pride overtakes wisdom. I have reviewed all battle data. I understand now what we face. You have been preparing for this war since the moment you discovered you were not alone in the galaxy." Chen said nothing, waiting. Your species has spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare on one planet, Kresh continued. You have fought more wars than the Concordat has fought in 3,000 years of expansion. You understand tactics, strategy, and the psychology of combat in ways we do not. We were arrogant to think otherwise. You are offering surrender? Chen asked, surprised. I am offering to stop this war before more lives are wasted. But I need time. There are factions within the Concordat who will not accept negotiation. Vexthor is one of them. As if summoned by his name, Vexthor launched his final attack. He had been listening to the communication, growing more enraged with every word. Surrender? Negotiate? The Concordat did not bow to anyone. Without authorization, Vexthor ordered his remaining loyalist ships to attack. 40 vessels broke formation and charged toward Earth, weapons blazing. It was madness, a desperate last attempt to salvage honor from disaster. Admiral Chen saw them coming. The Indomitable was still in dry dock, not ready for combat. Her remaining fleet was scattered. This should have been a crisis. Instead, something else happened. Something the Zalthrans never expected. Human ships poured out of the inner system. Not warships. Construction vessels from the Jupiter shipyards. Mining ships from the asteroid belt. Cargo haulers from the Mars colonies. Hundreds of civilian vessels all armed with improvised weapons. What is this? Vexthor demanded, staring at his display. His tactical officer's voice shook. Admiral, every human ship is coming to defend Earth. Military, civilian, commercial. They are all armed. They are all fighting. It was the nightmare scenario the Concordat had never imagined. A species where every ship could become a warship. Where every citizen was willing to fight. Where the line between soldier and civilian blurred into meaninglessness when their homeworld was threatened. The construction ships had welding torches turned into cutting beams. The mining vessels had rock-breaking charges converted into missiles. The cargo haulers rammed Zalthran fighters with their massive hulls. It was chaos, brutal and desperate, but it was effective. Vexthor's attack dissolved into carnage. His ships were overwhelmed not by superior technology, but by sheer numbers and fanatical determination. Human vessels swarmed his cruisers, accepting casualties that no sane military commander would tolerate. They are insane, someone shouted on the Zalthran communication channels. They do not care about losses. They just keep attacking. Admiral Kresh watched the battle with growing horror. This was what happened when you threatened humanity's homeworld. They did not calculate odds. They did not weigh costs. They simply fought with everything they had. She opened fire on Vexthor's command ship. Her weapons disabled it quickly, preventing further carnage. This ends now, she broadcast on all channels. All Concordat ships stand down. That is a direct order. The fighting stopped gradually. Zalthran ships broke off, their crews confused and demoralized. Human vessels held position, waiting for orders from Admiral Chen. Vexthor's ship was boarded by Kresh's Marines. The commander was found on his bridge, staring at displays that showed his fleet's destruction. He had started with 200 ships. Only 35 remained intact. Admiral Chen contacted Kresh again. Your commander tried to destroy us. He failed, now what? Now we talk, Kresh replied. Not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. Because that is what you have proven yourselves to be. The negotiations took 3 weeks. They occurred on a neutral station in the asteroid belt, with representatives from Earth and all 7 Concordat species present. The terms were harsh but fair. The Zalthran Concordat would pay reparations for the damage caused. They would withdraw all military forces from human space. They would establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth, recognizing humanity as a sovereign power. Any future contact would be peaceful, or there would be no contact at all. And what happens to Commander Vexthor? Admiral Chen asked. He will be tried by a Concordat military court for unauthorized use of planet-killer weapons, Kresh replied. His career is over. His honor is destroyed. For a Zalthran, that is worse than death. Chen nodded slowly. She understood honor and its price. What about the species that stood down during the battle? The Kresh and the Vorn? They will be granted full independence from Concordat military service. Your mercy to them has not been forgotten. The treaty was signed in the same week that the Indomitable completed its repairs. The battleship hung in Earth orbit, its hull still bearing scars from the desperate battle. Workers welded a new plaque to its side, commemorating the defense of Earth. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck, watching the last Concordat ships depart the Sol system. Her executive officer joined her, looking equally tired. Did we win, Admiral? He asked. Chen considered the question. We survived. We proved that humanity will not be conquered easily. Word will spread across the galaxy about what happened here. Is that good or bad? Both, Chen admitted. Some species will respect us. Others will fear us. A few will want to test us. But they will all know one thing. Humans know war. We have spent our entire history learning its lessons. We do not seek conflict. But when it comes to our door, we will fight with everything we have. In the following months, reports spread across known space. Every civilization with access to faster-than-light communication heard about the Battle of Sol. The stories varied, but the conclusion was always the same. A species that had only been in space for 300 years had defeated the mighty Zalthron Concordat. They had done it with superior tactics, psychological warfare, and a willingness to adapt that the Concordat had never encountered. They had proven that experience mattered more than age, that innovation trumped tradition, and that underestimating an opponent was the fastest path to defeat. The Concordat Council issued a new directive to all military forces. Before engaging any unknown species, study them thoroughly. Learn their history. Understand their nature. Never assume victory based on technological advantage alone. But the most important change came from an unexpected source. The Crescent Vorn, freed from Concordat military service, signed a defense pact with humanity. They offered to share their knowledge of the galaxy in exchange for Earth's protection and alliance. Other species watching carefully began to reach out, not with threats but with trade offers and diplomatic inquiries. Humanity's reputation shifted from unknown primitives to respected warriors, fear and respect in equal measure. Admiral Chen retired 5 years later, her duty fulfilled. She spent her final years teaching at the new Interstellar Military Academy on Mars, training the next generation of officers. Her lessons were simple but powerful. Never underestimate your enemy. Never stop learning. Never stop adapting. And remember that our history, all those thousands of years of human warfare, was not something to be proud of, but it was something to learn from. We turned our worst impulses into survival tools when survival mattered most. The Indomitable remained in service for 3 decades, a symbol of Earth's determination. New battleships eventually replaced it, incorporating lessons learned from the war. But the first great defender of humanity never fought another major battle. It did not need to. Its legend was enough. Across the galaxy, in 100 different languages, one phrase became universal when discussing humanity. Leave Terra alone. The species that had spent 10,000 years learning to fight each other had finally found peace among the stars. Not because they were peaceful, but because everyone else understood what would happen if they forced humans to fight again. Commander Vexthor lived to see humanity rise as a galactic power. He spent his remaining years in exile, stripped of rank and honor, watching the species he had underestimated become one of the most influential forces in known space. On the anniversary of the battle, he sent a single message to Admiral Chen's successor. It contained only 5 words: "We should have studied you." The reply came quickly: "Yes, you should have."